Allow me to paint a picture very quickly. You have one person who's given you a lowball offer for your business. You've been thinking about potentially selling your business. You have a few other people that have sent you emails. You're not sure if they're real bona fide buyers or just people trying to lasso deals or waste your time. The people that are interested are moving slow. They're asking a tremendous amount of questions, and you don't know what you should provide or what you shouldn't provide. Are we going to get to a conclusion? Is this just an information gathering session? And there's no defined timeline. Is this the way businesses are sold? Complex, distracting, messy, out of control? Or can it be done in a simple way that allows you to focus on your business while you are selling the company? That is done simple, clean, and discreetly. It allows you to retain control. Well, I can tell you after 150 deals and $1 billion of transaction that yes, that is accomplishable. However, it needs to be done thoughtfully, needs to be done deliberately, needs to be done proactively. And in today's video, we're going to discuss the 6-month process to selling a business that maintains all those variables, that avoids the distraction, avoids the mess, avoids the pain points, gets you the results that you're looking for. I'm Arthur Petropoulos, managing partner and president here at Hillview Partners. We're a middle market, lower middle market M&A, capital advisory firm, investment banking firm, selling companies, finding capital for companies, typically generating about $1 million to $20 million a year in pre-tax earnings or profit. So let's say you are going to sell your company. What are the main 3 themes in selling a business, or the main 3 things that need to happen in selling a business? From our experience, those would be A, the right narrative, B, the right audience, C, the right process. The narrative being what you tell people, the audience being who you tell it to, and the process being how do you get someone you have told something to ultimately do the thing you would like them to do. So the purpose of a process of selling a business is to enhance the characterization of the business, or to maximize what it is that you are selling and the value you can attribute from it. To enhance or maximize the audience of people you're telling it to run across different spectrums of types of buyers, of why they may want to buy it. And 3, doing it with sufficient volume to eradicate randomness. And that's a complicated way of saying doing something enough times to get a certain answer, while not doing it so many times that you're wasting time, and not doing it so few times that you don't get all the data points. And so how does this actually break down from a process standpoint? Well, with every client we work with, or prospective client we discuss with, we walk through our Gantt chart, but we can at least give kind of the verbal overview of what that looks like. So company wants to sell, we begin working with them. From day 1, they receive our list of kind of initial questions or information requests. We ensure that this list is not an egregiously long, there's not bank reconciliations, tax returns, it's the stuff that people want to know to buy the company. And so tends to be, from our perspective, that can be a 10 to 20 question type of list of just a key core, middle bite of the pizza. Why is the business special? People, process, product, sales, execution, optimization, what makes it different, what missing puzzle piece could it fit for somebody else? Again, we have that perfectly structured in a way that we know precisely what people want to look at. So that information can be gathered and put into or formed into the right kind of materials for the market in about 3 weeks. Now, simultaneous to that is the research for prospective counterparties. Now, utilizing databases, Capital IQ, PitchBook, utilizing our own kind of proprietary AI-driven databases, our own vast network of 6 figures of deal people in the world looking to buy things, you can extrapolate who the right audience is. Now, in the middle market, $1 to $20 million of EBITDA, you're talking about the broadest spectrum of prospective acquirers. You've got giant publicly traded strategic companies, and you have to know who to talk to and how to reach out to them. If you say, oh, this would be great for Microsoft, we've said to people in the past is like, great, give them a call, see what they think, right? You have to know who to contact, what's kind of your attack vector, and then that goes down to big private equity, middle market private equity, lower middle market private equity, family offices, independent sponsors, search funds, high net worth individuals, and all of them can be interested in the same deal. So you really can't just hit one particular cohort, you have to reach the broad audience. And in addition to that, mapping out who is missing a certain access point. Okay, your company serves this industry, geography, demographic. Who is missing a certain capability? Are you the missing puzzle piece to them? So within that first 3 weeks, that is high intensity, lots of work to crystallize the narrative, to define the audience, to be in a position within that first month to start reaching out and having those dialogues. And so day 21 to day 60 of a sale of a business is called the building of the audience. We'll show some graphic of a mountain being materialized here. But the idea is Day 21 to day 60, you are building audience. You are having initial dialogues. And that's calls, texts, emails, Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, carrier pigeons, us being the investment banker representing our clients. And we've retired the carrier pigeons a few years ago. But the idea is we want to reach out to people and say, this is what we are representing, and this is why it could be interesting. And this is done anonymously. You don't want to just go running around the street yelling the name of a company. So we are saying, hey, we're representing a company that does a thing. Here's the missing puzzle piece it could be to you. Is this interesting? If someone says, I don't know, could be, pass. We don't sell to non-believers. We want to find all the yeses and get them to compete against each other. We're not interested in turning no's into yeses or even turning maybes into yeses. We want all the yeses and they will compete against each other. So there's that outreach at sufficient volume to eliminate randomness. And so we reach out to people, have these conversations. If they are interested and capable, have a track record, have experience, have the capabilities, financial wherewithal, they sign a non-disclosure agreement. They then go into the data room, get to see more information, learn the name of the company, and we are having further dialogues with them. So the goal is you reach out to the max audience on an anonymized basis so that those that are not interested never even know the name of the company, and therefore you're keeping a far more discreet exercise. Those that do sign the NDA see the name of the company, again, after we've vetted them if they're bona fide, and they then are in the process. So now with that subset, we're at day 60 moving towards day 90. We have a process that we run interested parties through. That is inclusive of follow-up questions and several meetings with us. Ultimately, it incorporates, sometimes just before offer, sometimes just after, Zoom meetings with ownership, again, that we facilitate, that we are on every meeting, that we are prepping our clients for, a handful of 45-hour-long Zoom meetings with potential acquirers to then ultimately get to offers at day 90. So we're at day 90. We've taken the audience from peak down to those that actually want to submit offers that we are able to extract offers from. And then we work with our client to look at these offers side by side. Not every offer is the same. We've said it in other videos. Value, structure, transition, and stakeholders. That can be community, employees, things of that nature. But you really have to line up every deal next to each other, say where do they hit on all these variables, and then iterate that negotiation. And we, again, go out and advocate for our clients. Now, some clients say, hey, look, I could negotiate a couple deals myself, perhaps, but there's always a transition period after, particularly in situations where you're going to keep working with the buyer. Allow the banker to be one layer in front of you. What that does is two things. One, they can have very, very direct communications and push and push and push in a way that maybe you would not want to because you don't want to necessarily tarnish a relationship. In our situation, they can always say, oh, well, that's just a banker. We're diplomatic about it, but it's our job to advocate. It's our job to get the most that we can. And secondly, it always gives you a second bite at the apple. Imagine a buyer says, hey, we think we can do X. The answer is always, well, I will speak to my client about it. So again, the answer does not have to be imminent. We can think, we can talk. There's a pacing to it. And that's just one element of where the banker is pivotal. However, that's the idea. So now we're at day 90. We have all the offers. From day 90 to day 100, we are negotiating these offers. We're iterating them to the point where we can hopefully, and in every situation, try to get to an optimized offer across all variables. Value of the company, structure, how much is that closing, what's over time, transition, how long must the seller stay involved with the business, which you want to define clearly. And then lastly, stakeholders. How are they protected? What's their future trajectory and upside look like? Now we're into diligence. We assume we sign with one person. We're into formal diligence. Formal diligence starts with we call it confirmatory diligence, not evaluative diligence. You really need to pound the table with the buyers to say, hey, if we're signing this LOI, we're getting to closing, right? We don't want anything dying in between, because if you die in the middle of a lake or 10 feet from the other side of the shore, you're still drowned. And so we need to get to closing. We pound the table to say confirmatory, not evaluative. I don't want you to hear, do I really think this thing is pretty? I want you to hear, I am sweeping for landmines to make sure that there's no undisclosed things to get me to closing. So what does that typically consist of? Two main items in diligence, one being the quality of earnings, financial diligence, second being legal diligence. Quality of earnings, the accountants descend upon your office, and it's more amicable than that sounds. But they look through all the information. Does everything tie out to the bank statements? Does everything tie out to the tax returns? Are there any anomalies in the business that they want to discuss further? But the goal of that is to ultimately come back to confirm EBITDA. Now, they'll come back and there'll be some negotiations if they see that anything is off, and no one's numbers are ever perfect, so there's always some conversations. And then they negotiate the working capital of a business. Now that's a heavy negotiation. What is the sufficient amount of receivables and payables historically, any cash that needs to stay in the business for the next owner? Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a family that runs a business, you probably keep a lot of extra cash in your company, because what's the difference? If it's going to make 4% one place or another, you can just leave it in there. It's always good to have some excess money, so you're not always wiring money or writing checks from personal accounts. You don't need to sweep the bank account every month like a big company. But you don't want someone looking at that and saying, well, you always keep $500,000 of cash in the business. You always keep $2 million of cash in the business. That seems normal, right? That's where you want to negotiate to say, no, that's excess cash. The actual cash necessary is far less. And that's a big negotiating element. Second element of diligence is going to be the legal diligence. Now, they are going to ask a bunch of questions, review all the contracts, things of that nature. That has some negotiating involved. But the main element, the main deduction of that is going to be a purchase agreement and a transition agreement, in the sense that if you say, hey, I can help for 3 months, 2 months, whatever, and then it tapers off after that, it has to be defined, right? In God we trust, everyone else writes things down. And so that's another heavily negotiated thing, is going to be the transition agreement. You want to agree to the primary terms of that during the LOI negotiations. However, this is where the rubber's going to hit the road, and it's going to be on paper. So in diligence, you're talking 60 to 90 days. A lot of times, if there's an outside lender involved, they're going to be the slowest party to it. So that can make it closer to 90 days. If there's not an outside lender, it could be 60 days. But expect in diligence, a financial diligence, legal diligence. Two big things to negotiate: quality of earnings, working capital, inclusive of that. And secondly, the transition agreement. Those other things like a purchase price allocation for tax purposes, and there's a lot of nits and grits in between, but that's primary diligence. So you hit day 60 in diligence, let's say in a 90-day diligence, you get the definitive documentation, which the buyer prepares, and you have an attorney at that point kind of parachute into the situation, of which we have people all over the country that we've worked with, but certainly if people have their own attorneys, that's wonderful as well. And then that is negotiated to a closing at the 6-month mark. So that is your 6-month process. Information crystallization, audience crystallization, build the audience, carve the audience down, negotiate a matrix, if you will, of offers across the 4 key variables, get into diligence, make sure it's confirmatory, not evaluative, sweep for landmines financially, sweep for landmines legally, get to closing. 6 months. None of this waits, none of this languishes, none of this is, I don't know what's next. There's a roadmap, there's a train, it is moving. If buyers want to stay on it, they can buy the company they want, fill the missing puzzle piece, solve their pain, and if they don't want to, then someone else is willing to take the train to the next stop. So that's the idea. That's the key to simplifying the process. Because what are the 4 pain points that we highlighted in the beginning of this video? Well, complex. It's not so complex if you know every step along the way. Distracting. Well, not so much if you have someone shepherding the process alongside you and you are aware of what those steps are. Messy. Well, it's not messy if we're the ones dictating the steps, if we're the ones evaluating who stays, who goes, what's shared, what's not shared. We make sure it's not a mess because it is our information to control, right? The leverage is on our side. The control is on our side. We are going to dictate. We're going to be the arbiter of what's fair. I don't mean our side like just the banker, but the seller, our client, and us as one cohesive unit. We are going to be the arbiter of what needs to be shared, of what we feel comfortable sharing, of the pacing and the sequencing. And then lastly, is it out of control? Well, not so much if you have all of this solved for it, if you have these steps laid out. So that's the thought for this week. M&A simplified, 6 months from engagement, from starting to closing. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.